going on? Another edition from the Bleachers Sports Show. This is me, your buddy, your pal, your amigo, your compadre, Tom. I do implore you to please subscribe, hit the like button. It does help out the channel significantly. Have two other channels. The GRES Show and GRES, which is fun, hilarious. Beg you and implore you to check out the channel. It's definitely a good time. We're talking about sports here on this channel, a couple of things. As far as the NWA, watching the NWA. As you know, they're not running shows right now, but they're putting out new content. They did Inside the NWA. They explained, kind of went into detail as to why they are not running shows, and I support it 100%. To be quite frank. I think it makes sense, to each its own. But, I kind of agree with the sentiment that, you've taken one step forward, and if you don't believe in something, you don't want to take two steps back. Meaning, let's say if you don't believe in running a show without a crowd, if you feel that the crowd is essential to your product, it's a fabric of your product, you're not going to jeopardize that and take two steps back in how people view your product after you've worked so hard to kind of get your product to where it is now. But nonetheless, so they're putting out new product, new content on the channel daily. And first episode today of what's called and I like the title, which is a tongue twister. What's causing all this? So it's what's causing, Causin, all this, Aldis. And as you guessed it, the host, it's Nick Aldis, and it's almost like a sit-down interview. It was a sit-down interview, at least the first episode of this program on this channel. And he's just sitting now with Crimson, who I believe is actually like a producer now, but with NWA, and Latimer. And, Latimer also, from the British scene when he came up. Crimson, from the Nashville, Tennessee side of, the South wrestling, coming up for those ranks. And, they kind of just, I really liked it. They kind of went over, like how they came up in the industry, how life was, let's say, for Aldis in wrestling overseas coming up. How the promoter, and he shared a couple of funny stories regards to the promoter. Sometimes, the promoter would say, okay, especially when he was young, trying to get over, trying to, make a connection with the crowd. And he mentioned, okay, sometimes the promoter would change his name. Change his name from any given week. His name could be different because he was wrestling. He kind of had a main, and I'm not trying to do this injustice. Kind of had one federation that he was really performing for, at least a main one, which I guess you could consider his home fed. And from week to week, sometimes they would change his name, try to get him over. So let's say one week he was in, I don't know, Missouri or Gray, Indiana. So that week he would be from Gray, Indiana, that city. Just obviously picture it being in Britain. So they made him out to be a local wrestler, that way to get over with the fans. And he would kind of have to make, and sometimes whatever town they were in, he had no idea anything about that town. Still had to play it off like he was from that town. And, sometimes he wanted to make sure that he was trying to cover himself, make sure that he wasn't exposed, caught in a lie. Then that also correlates a funny story with Crimson. If you remember Crimson going back to the TNA days, and I think I was even at this house show, because he was referring to them being with Amazing Red, and Amazing Red, when Crimson was introduced, it was like the brother, I believe, of Amazing Red. Eventually, Amazing Red left about 2 months after the fact, and his whole character in Crimson was that he was Amazing Red's brother, but Amazing Red was long gone, and he was billed from Brooklyn, I believe it was. So they had a house show in Brooklyn, the TNA, and he was still being billed from Brooklyn, even though he was never knows nothing about Brooklyn, more a Tennessee guy. Guy comes up to him for his autograph at this one of these signings after a house show, which I think that was in Coney Island, Brooklyn MCU Park, on the pier there, and he was being ribbed, saying, that he was going along with it, like, yeah, he was from Brooklyn. And the guy getting the autograph goes, "Oh, really? What part of Brooklyn?" Crimson went, to, south side of Brooklyn. So it's stories like that, how when Aldis first came into TNA, coming off of Gladiators, he felt that TNA really didn't know who he was. They just known him from the Gladiator show that he was on, so they kind of made him wear like this big helmet that was, like he said, like 25, 30 pounds, which was extremely heavy, and he was always concerned, all this, and not like basically falling over, because that would be the end of it. That would kill his whole character. So he was always very cautious of that helmet that he had on, trying to make it to the ring without it falling off. He thought that Vince Russo only seen him as from Gladiators, and he thought he was supposed to be some type of a gladiator. Like, so he felt that really no one knew who he was, and at that point he was still fairly young. And he was just really never questioning any of the characters that were being given to him. He was just trying to be yes sir, no ma'am. Just not trying to keep everyone happy. Right? So, that's what the first episode was. It was about, three buddies just, knowing each other a long time in the business, just shooting the breeze about how they were coming up early, coming up through Impact, being in the Indies, early, just really early stuff about when they were first new to the business. How one time Aldis was, when he was, Brutus Magnus was going to do a run-in when he was teaming with Williams there, and he missed his cue because he was waiting at the wrong side of the building, and he couldn't see what was going on. Stuff like that. He said that people thought that he was more experienced than what he really was. So, Yeah, the first episode was really, it's really good. It was an hour and a half, I believe. And I was never really looking at the clock as to how, never felt long winded. And, I appreciate the fact that they're putting out new content. And I think this is something that, the fans will appreciate. It will help, I think, these characters get more over than they already are. I said it, I was thinking this to myself, like they have Carneyland, which I gave my thoughts on. I thought that, I think that's has potential to be very good. You're going to have, it keeps the characters in line, it keeps them relevant, and you're going to be able to introduce them to a new audience, and these guys are going to be able to get themselves more over now than before. They have all the free range, creativity, mic time, one-on-one. They're engaging the audience, and what's causing all this? It was good. It was good. Very good. Next week's conversation will be with James Storm. So I do look forward to that. And very happy with NWA. Hope all is well.